Welcome, everyone. It's great to see all of you via the virtual world. And I want to welcome you all to the National Opera Association's Building Real Opera in a Virtual World. I come to you now from my backyard in Santa Barbara, California. I hope you are all well. It's been a few months since we last saw each other in Cleveland. Things have drastically changed in our lives since then. And I think today is a sobering day for all of us, because today is the reminder that we've lost 100,000 souls. And we all have challenges that we're meeting, and we just want to take a second to think about all those people, many of them we know. And thank you, everyone. Before we start, I want to thank a few people. First of all, special thanks to Kurt Sievertson, our incredible new executive director. I've enjoyed working with him immensely over the last few months. Special thanks to the University of Michigan, our new male home for all things National Opera Association, and thank you to them for hosting this webinar. I want to thank our executive committee, our board of directors for NOA, and especially our VP of conferences, Jess Munoz, our treasurer, Rebecca Renfro, and our past president, Paul Hoteling, for their help setting this up and their friendship. So, building real opera in a virtual world. We don't even know what that world is right now. We're waiting for our administrators, we're waiting for our presidents, our chancellors to decide our formats. I hope this session will be helpful to give you all some ideas on the possibilities of moving forward, because we don't know yet how we can move forward. And I also hope this begins a national dialogue between friends and colleagues all throughout the United States, and for us all to know that we're in this together. We're not alone on an island. We all are facing these challenges, and reach out to your friends and colleagues. We are here for you, and the National Opera Association is here for you. We are so lucky to have this extraordinary panel today of colleagues from around the country, and I'll introduce them now. We have Ken Cazan from University of Southern California. He is the resident stage director of the Thornton Opera Center. We have Carleen Graham from the Houston Grand Opera, who is director of the HGOco. We have Samuel Mungo from Peabody Conservatory, the artistic director of opera. We have Ellen Schlaefer from University of South Carolina, director of opera studies, as well as Christoph Thomson from Ball State University, where he is co-director of the Music Media Production Program and recording engineer. So I want to thank all of you for signing up for this and for the outpouring of questions and ideas that you brought to the table. With those ideas, I came up with some questions that came to the surface of all this. I also want to encourage you to use the Q&A at the bottom right hand of your little groupings there. And there you can ask a follow-up question. And I know that there's over 200 of you, so we might not get to everything, but we will do our best. So I want to ask my panel to unmute and make themselves seen to all of you. There they are. I want to put a special thanks out to the biggest trooper of the day, who is Carleen Graham from Houston. She had cataract surgery this morning. So
wow.
Carleen, you're a rock star.
You look great, Carleen.
Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much for doing this. We're going to dive right into this. And since I have Sam right here, I'm going to direct this right to you, and then we're going to go through everyone here. So Sam, I know we talked about a little bit privately about what you did in the spring, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and also moving forward. So all of you, how are you planning to teach your opera workshop course or performance this fall? How do you plan to create a meaningful experience for your students, right, with this format that you've chosen?
Well, thanks, Ben, and thanks everybody for being here, and thanks for my co-panelists. It's great to be amongst you all, and humbling as well. This spring, I think I had the same experience as most of us. Some of us were able to perform. Some of us were not able to perform. We actually got to the final dress rehearsal when we heard we had to stop, had to cancel the final dress rehearsal. There was a huge outpouring. We were able to do that, and the orchestra then turned around and did a Tchaik 5 in the cafeteria. So it was empowering in that way, because people knew what they were. They were musicians, and they knew what they wanted to be. They wanted to pursue this. They were truly needing to make this happen, and it was an honor to be watching that. And I'm sure we all have similar experiences through our spring. It feels like 1,000 years ago, of course, but as I've been working on, and I'm sure we all have been working on, trying to figure out what to do, we had 48 to 72 hours to completely revitalize and revamp everything we did. We all had to know what we did and completely change it. So a lot of us, all we did was make it up. We made it the best of what we could, with various levels of success, I think. But now that we have this time to succeed, I think that what we find, what I think we all need to find, and what I found from that Opera America session last week, is this idea of opportunity. I do not believe that trying to make a technology that's not meant to do what we want it to do, to perform a genre in ways that it was not meant to record, is the right way. I am a full fan of finding ways to find new technologies, finding ways of revamping technologies, finding shows that will work in this venue, finding opportunities to create in new and wonderful ways. And honestly, I have to say, in all the years I've been in NOA, the most creative people are you all. We have to be, because we often have tissue paper and duct tape to put together to put on an opera, and we do it, and we find ways to engage our students.
So Sam,
yeah.
How are you doing the fall? How are you doing the fall then?
We don't know. I understand, I just got an email this morning that on June 5th, there's going to be a meeting, and that's what we're going to find out. I have put together 8 scenarios and 8 budgets for those 8 scenarios. Our budget at this point has been cut 27%. I'm guessing it's probably going to be cut another 30 to 40%. So we're at duct tape and tissue paper, which is fine. That's not unusual for most of us. I am looking at opportunities to use some live stream and find some ways to use the recording. What I really want to avoid, and what I think we all kind of want to avoid, is this Brady Bunch boxes thing, which really doesn't really. I think there's better ways to create in that way. So if we do a hybrid, I think we're probably going to do a hybrid because we're connected to Johns Hopkins, and they're certainly not going to be at the forefront of opening things. So I think that by finding ways to do something live, like finding social distancing shows, finding ways to create and do rehearsals, social distancing, and also doing the same thing online, finding ways to create something that still has that live aspect online, because I'm not really interested in opera that is merely recorded, and I don't think any of us are.
So Ellen, what are you guys doing at USC? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
There we
got
go.
it. I realize I'm the dinosaur on the panel, so I'm here to make the rest of y'all look good. We are, like everybody else, we're making it up. I've just gotten a whole bunch of new information in the last 18 hours from the university about how we are opening up gradually, and the restrictions that we have to all wear masks now on campus. So that throws a whole new monkey wrench into this. I'm exploring smaller venues. Just found out that our Roadhouse of course, everything's canceled coming into that. So that space may or may not open up for us in terms of doing something small in a very large space. I was actually, as some other opera companies are, looking into drive-in theaters. But evidently, Toby Mac has just scarfed up all of the performance venues in the state and drive-in theaters. Honestly, I really don't have a good grasp. So I started reaching out to my students. And yesterday we had a Zoom meeting with about 16 of them, undergrads and grads. And hopefully we'll continue to have discussions, because I want to do the best by them. And we all know it can't be the same. I have degree requirements that we have to meet. And I like Sam, I don't want to do the Brady Bunch. I didn't like it when it was on to begin with. So we are exploring as a unit at the School of Music, and trying to figure out what's the best, and quite frankly, having a lot of pressure from outside sources to continue having live performances. So I'm actually looking into getting a flatbed truck and having a wagon go through town, pulling into parking lots and stuff.
Interesting.
Everything's on the table, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ken, what are you doing at the other USC?
The other USC, we are
Yeah.
doing Pelléas and Melisande in the fall, which is a piece about social distancing, interestingly, which is one of the reasons we chose it. We're doing it in an outdoor venue. We're doing it in a parking garage in the Arts District of LA. We are indeed pre-recording it. That's the plan at the moment, because we have all sorts of rules and restrictions coming down from on high at the university. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We'll have 10 weeks roughly to put it all together, which includes coaching it to begin with, and staging, 2 weeks for recording and editing. And then, because we're doing I don't know if everybody's aware, there's a 2 piano version of Pelléas and Melisande, and that's what we're doing. I did it years ago at AVA, and that's what we're going to do at USC now. As far as classes go, a lot of it's going to be online. And so we're all adjusting our syllabi and our mentalities. You know, it's not the ideal way to do opera, of course, but it's what we're going to do.
So what about the nuts and bolts of daily rehearsal? How are you going to socially distance? Are you going to use, plastic sneeze guards? What are you planning to do for that? And are you getting guidance from, your superiors on, or edicts?
We're getting edicts, not a lot of guidance. We're basically creating the guidance, because I think we're infinitely more up on all of the latest knowledge about aerosols and the length that the droplets travel, et cetera, et cetera. And even that's, we get different information every day, as you all know. People will wear masks in rehearsal. We're not sure if they will wear the plastic masks. They'll definitely wear cloth masks. I'm creating a staging that keeps people socially distanced. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. We'll be rehearsing outdoors the entire piece. It's just, we're lucky we live in a place.
Yeah, we can do that.
Where it's exceptional, so we can do that, and we're going to take full advantage of it.
Great. Well, I'd like to talk to Christoph now. Christoph is at Ball State, and he is our resident tech expert. And when we were talking this summer, I asked him, not this summer, sorry, it feels like summer. We were talking a few weeks ago. You said one of your jobs is to tell people that you're not there's no Santa Claus.
Yeah, a little bit. So a lot of the things I've done is
Can you turn your volume up, Christoph?
yeah,
That'd be
let me
great.
get a little closer to the mic.
A little
Is
higher,
that
yeah.
better?
Yeah, a little higher even.
Okay, hang on. I try to have it not so hot. Okay, is that better?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, good. So one of the things that I constantly had to explain is the problem of the latency, especially for the real-time performing. And really early on when these cascaded, I think you guys called them the Brady Bunch performances started to surface, the impression that people had was that there would be live performances. And doing something interactive, especially with many different performers, is very difficult because of the different latency offsets and those kind of things. So the problem you would be running into is basically having a video element and an audio element. And getting those two things combined in real time without offset is typically the difficulty. And that being said, if people are within the same building, you can have a network that would allow you to do real-time interaction without any issues. So it all really comes down to the up and downstream capabilities. So you could, for instance, have a situation where one side has a really great upstream and will stream out, broadcast in great quality. And the load for that is then on the presenter side, and then you would have a bunch of clients who would then, in return, take that. But then it just takes one person with a poor connection to have a poor upstream to return, and you'd be already out of sync of those kind of things. So the networking is certainly a solution if you're within the same building or within the same campus. So you want to get friends with your networking engineer as well as your audio engineers. And the long distance interaction, which I don't think will be so much of an issue if we're kind of doing the hybrid approach and people are back on campus. So the long distance collaboration is near impossible. So even basically, even if you had all the money in the world, you could still not do something real time with someone in Wisconsin when you're in Indiana. It will be really difficult just because, you know, just the encode window for the codec to bring it down, make it smaller, then to transmit it even in perfect conditions, you would have at least 10 milliseconds. And 10 milliseconds doesn't sound much, but once you have to be in time and once things have to be lined up, I mean, music that's so important, you know, like 20 milliseconds can be an eternity and make things a good performance impossible.
What are you guys doing at Ball State for opera in the fall? Do you know?
Yeah, we're doing the hybrid approach. So we'll start in person, and then we will go full speed ahead until Thanksgiving, and then we will switch. So just when flu season starts, basically, we will switch back to online.
So here's a question from somebody. What system are you planning to use in order to do this?
So if we are in person and, for instance, we need to do safe rehearsals, then the one system everybody should be looking into, and I'm thinking the leading universities with good tech personnel already have this going, will be a Dante system. Dante will allow you to do a real-time transfer of audio through an entire building. So that means you can have different Dante interfaces or Dante capable interfaces in various spots on campus, and you can have a real-time audio transfer. So we would be using an audio network. And what I've been using so far, although there's a latency, but the system that's lonely at the top is Source Connect. Source Elements is the manufacturer, and Source Connect is a client that you can put into your Pro Tools session or whatever, or it's called Source Nexus, which basically is a virtual sound card that will allow you to send your audio virtually within your core audio environment in your Mac, and you can just broadcast it and receive it. And what it does, and it's the only software that does that, especially with opera, where I'm assuming video is really important. It's the only software that will give you a frame accurate sync of video and audio. So that means, you know, someone sings and you can makes a gesture and it's frame accurate, so it's absolutely locked in together when things happen. And I think that's really important. And so far, all the different approaches where, you know, some people would use Zoom just for the video and then you use something else just for the audio, that offset I think can be detrimental to the perceived quality of operatic performance.
Interesting. Well, we're going to get back to you. I'm sure we're going to have lots of tech questions. Carleen, what are you doing other than resting for the fall?
Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yes,
I have
you're
an
great.
issue. I'm always
sound
doing
great.
the opposite. Great. Hi, everyone. I was just delighted and honored to be included in today's panel. Obviously, my work is different, though I was at a college at SUNY Potsdam for many years. I'm now at Houston Grand Opera, and I direct the Houston Grand Opera HGOco, which is community and learning programming for the company. And obviously, we're in high gear in terms of scenario planning. I think Sam talked about making multiple scenarios, and I feel like that's my full-time job now, is doing multiple scenarios. And I have to hold this away because the eye that I had worked on today is actually my reading eye, so I'm really struggling here a little bit. So I think for right now, the company has not made any formal announcements yet about next season. But the things I can tell you about a little bit right now are, you know, we're really looking at how because we do a number of initiatives in the community and whatnot, and some of the ways that we're looking to reimagine those projects are from, you know, moving with the progress of society. So for instance, you know, if none of us can be together in the same space and sing together, or if we can't congregate together, perhaps we start online, we start virtually, and then there's a gradual progression of the project to say next spring, where then we can all be together, you know, when it's safe to do so. And within that kind of framework, I'm also looking at creating programming that uses that as a tool to build momentum for the actual project. So again, we have an initiative called Seeking the Human Spirit, and so we do a number of community engaged types of discussions and performances and things that are related back to the main stage programs and whatnot. And it gives us an enormous flexibility. We can be quite nimble in responding to what is going on in the community or in the world at the time. So trying to plan those scenarios where you can actually move with what you're doing. And I think for opera directors, it's really hard for us at schools because we know we have to plan things out so far in advance. So that's one way that I'm trying to look at this as an opportunity, is to kind of reimagine how we plan and how we need to plan. We're obviously looking at a lot of alternative venues where we can have maybe more artistic and creative control over how we connect with our audiences in those spaces. And in some cases, we're actually redirecting a culminating project where we will likely move it in a way to respond to this pandemic rather than stay on a certain topic. And so, you know, I think the other thing that comes up to mind now that I've been talking to students about is, you know, this is a very important time to be developing complementary skills. And I'm not talking, in my time, when I was a college student, we always called it Plan B. And to me, Plan B demeans it. This needs to be something that complements, you know, that adds to your strength. And I challenge my colleagues, everyone here listening, that, you know, I'm having to really work on my technology skills and there's just no excuse. And I can sit here and complain about it and say, oh, I'm terrible at it, blah, blah, blah. But it's not going to do me any good unless I actually make a concerted effort. And so I'm using this time to try to build my own complementary skill sets. And I would encourage students and my colleagues to do that. And then, thinking about trying to shift the way we look, thinking about this as a time of opportunity rather than having to compromise everything that we've done. We're going to move, society's going to move forward, and we can either decide to kind of dig our heels in, or we can decide to be creative and imaginative and respond to the world around us.
Yeah. Well, we have some really good follow-up questions for people, and I see our panelists answering some of those questions. I encourage all you participants to follow up. And Ken, one was from Miriam, a good dear old friend, and asking, and to all of you, obviously musical preparation is a huge part of what we do. How are you doing this? Are you doing it remotely? Or are you doing it, in a larger classroom, socially distanced?
Right. No, Christoph hit on something very, very important, and that is the idea. Sorry, I have a dog in my lap, which I'm just putting down.
That's part of life. It's part of life.
It is, with this one, it really is. We are doing the studio type feeling. What we're planning to do is, my studio is right next to my excellent partner, Brent McMunn's studio. He is the musical director for Thornton Opera. And he will be coaching in one room with an accompanist, masked, and the singer will be in his studio singing, or vice versa. And it will be a very real-time experience. And that's how we're planning to coach. A couple other things, if I may, I'd like to address that came up. We're really, really lucky at USC because we have a direct relationship with the Keck School of Medicine. And we're working with them literally on a daily basis to make sure we're up to date and as current as possible. I'm just looking at notes in my lap. We will have real time, as I just said, distance rehearsing. It's a best practices issue, isn't it? You do what you can for the students. And somebody asked, Matt Cook, hi Miriam, by the way, it's great to see you here. Is there an even value for students to return this year if their experience could be this compromised? Yes, of course.
Right.
Of course. I don't think there's any question about that. At least for me personally, there's not. Any performance experience is a good experience. As Carleen just said, we are the new entrepreneurs. They are really the new entrepreneurs in our business, because it's not necessarily that this is going to go away anytime soon. And we're going to all have to adjust our mentality, and technology will grow as this situation grows. And hopefully real time will become a more real event. But for the moment, we simply have to adjust and get them back to campus and encourage them to come back. And I think there are so many different ways of doing it, which we're hearing about today.
Mm-hmm.
Let me piggyback a little bit on what Ken is saying. And I think that's a problem that all of us are facing, is the idea of a lot of our students are going to be looking to take a gap year because this isn't going to be what they think it would be. But I don't think then we give them what they think they would get, if that makes any sense. I don't know that we try to put on Bohème. I think there are opportunities and ways, and like Carleen said, and Ken said, there's an entrepreneurship aspect of this that they have to be able to learn to do. This is even if when this goes away, there's going to be an online aspect of what we do. So by not telling them we're going to do kind of a iffy version of something that might or might not work, using the technology that we have and finding shows that work, like Peleas, and doing them in a way that is new and innovative. Finding monodramas. We're actually talking with the composition program and having them maybe write some monodramas. I'm talking with Ann Baltz about putting a pastiche together that uses both what she usually does. If you were at the Salt Lake conference, you know that she does these pastiches, putting some of the composers together to write some monodramas or smaller pieces. I did want to mention there's a lot of different ways of putting on shows, like putting them on a truck, like Ellen said, or doing them in a parking lot. There's a show that I saw years ago called Faith Fu and Her Friends. It was a play, and you would walk into a scene, walk into a place and see a bit, and then you would go to another room and see another bit. So finding ways for the audience to actually be the moving aspect. Ken, you might know of something that's in LA called Hopscotch Opera.
I saw it.
Did you? Okay. Where
Yeah, Yuval's a very close friend of mine, actually. So.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ann Baltz's daughter was in it for a number of years, I guess. And those of you who don't know, people get into a limousine and with singers or not, and then they will go to a certain part of the city and watch a scene. So
if I may correct you there very
I'm
quickly,
sorry.
You didn't go anywhere to watch the scene. The scene was in the limo, or it was in the van or the truck or whatever you were in. And it's very strange to get into a truck with the singer is 5 feet away from you or 4 feet away. And they were performing this scene, and half of them were former students of mine. And it was very exciting. It's the industry that always adjusts to the time. And I can promise you, will be leaders during this period.
Yeah, and thanks for that.
Change.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. So don't just think, I got to do it outside. But hey, I live in Maryland. I'm going to be able to do that till like October. There are a lot of different ways of doing it, and I think all of us are people that we can all talk to and find, how are we doing it? There are ways to make this done.
So here's
May I
another
say-
question.
Sorry, can I say something real quick, Ben?
Yes, sure,
Somebody
Ken.
just wrote, interactive theater is the future. What I kind of love about what's happening right now, I hate it, but what I love about it is this takes me back to, because I'm elderly, the late 70s, early 80s in New York when I was an actor. Interactive theater was everything, everything. All the great theater was coming out of garages and warehouses and storefronts. It's what it was then, and we think we're reinventing the wheel. We're not. We're rediscovering where we came from.
Absolutely. One of the questions that came up, and I think Ken, you're doing with recorded music from Melanie Helton here is, and his question to all of you and Christoph, is there, somebody it just went away. Oh, Christoph, is there something that the singers could have? Are they using headphones, or are they using monitors to hear the piano or orchestra track in the rooms with speakers?
So if they were in a separate room, a room separate from the pianist, for instance?
I believe both. Like how is USC going to do it for their live with orchestra, and then how would you possibly do it in a separate location?
So if you have an open mic and an open speaker, that's usually a great recipe for problems. So ideally, they would have headphones on, and you would just have a headphone engineer. So just like with a live concert or something like that, you could have someone
Like inner ear monitors.
Production.
Right.
If it's if it's a bigger production, then you could have, just like with an opera production, basically a front of house engineer and a monitor engineer who would just control that stream, make sure everybody has a great sound. And headphones are definitely going to be an improvement over having an open speaker, because you will have that speaker bleed back in to that to their microphone.
And Ken, are you just doing monitors for the orchestra? Just side?
We're not doing an
monitors?
orchestra. What we will do is we will record this. What we're talking about doing is setting up a group of rooms in one of our music buildings. Mm-hmm. And in one room, I would assume, and I'm really supposing here, will be Maestro and one of our wonderful TA accompanists, and they'll be doing the two pianos. And then the singers will be in different rooms as if it's a broadcast studio. We're calling them broadcast studios. And I would assume with headphones on. So they're really with the piano and pianos, and they'll record it that way. Sorry, shut up, Mimi. And they will, then that's what we'll play back to them as they're performing it live stream in the parking garage a couple weeks later.
Cool. So another question somebody raised, Ellen, maybe you could bring it up, is, how many students are people planning on having in a rehearsal space? That's a very good question.
Well, we've gotten conflicting information as everybody tries to figure this out about how many students can be in the room and what size room. And I haven't picked the repertoire for our next season. I'm leaning towards a series of small one acts, 1 or 2 people, and hoping that the 4 in my very cramped rehearsal room will meet the specs we need to do. As I said, the new wrinkle for me is that there's a huge theater right next door to us that suddenly has wide open space, and it's going to make it a lot easier for us to do social distance staging of perhaps larger pieces. One of the things that I'm surprised about is that we actually have a very high acceptance rate, people planning to come here. I thought we were going to have a lot more students opting for a gap year, or parents saying, why should I spend the money for virtual classes? I think that was one of the first questions answered. And I'm just curious if people are finding their student rates dropping down, but we're actually on par from our last year, both from university-wide and at the School of Music.
Our undergraduate rates are up, our graduate level.
Yeah, the UC
level.
Same here at all the UCs and UCSB as well. Interesting. Someone, this a few weeks ago, I won't get in a political thunderstorm here, but a few weeks ago there was a kind of very discouraging, let's say, medical reports put out there about singing and the health concerns of the act of singing, right? And some of them have been debunked a little bit, and I'm not going to get into the right and wrong of this, but I was just wondering if this had any impact on some of your students, or has it impacted you into thinking in limiting what you were doing or being more cautious, or are you looking at other medical reports? Anybody? Carleen, I saw you nodding about this.
Yeah. No, I mean, what I can say is what we're finding is that obviously, the health and well-being of our singers, our creative staffs, and everyone, are the teaching artists that we work with as well, are really have to be first and foremost. But I think, the idea that, singers now are kind of identified as super spreaders, and, there are going to be people that land very differently. I mean, being down here in Texas, you can imagine, I am the odd person outside wearing a mask. I mean, I get looks because I'm wearing a mask. And I'm not even in the most, conservative or rural parts of Texas, and I'm still getting looks. And so there's just going to be a lot of different viewpoints. I think honestly what it's going to boil down to is liability issues for the school. And certainly there have been cases of different large events in Houston that we've seen, even though they felt like they could make it or do something, it came down to an insurance issue. And so there may be things that they're so completely out of our control that, it's going to come down. It always comes down to money, sadly. And, but but I think that's for us that's what we're seeing is that, or seeing in and around our area with large organizations, it comes down to a liability issue.
A comment here is a question, is very interesting. Would the virtual opera not become a movie in the long run? I think that's a good question.
Well, I'll say that I'm putting together, actually I'm working with a company in Baltimore. It's called Human Being Productions, which is a fantastic name. And they're actually talking about having a live aspect combined with a recorded aspect. So they will actually bring hardware to the student's apartment or somewhere. It would have to be local, obviously. And they will have them sing or perform live with a click track, obviously. but they would be able to do, say, arias live, and then they will toggle like a stage manager to a different scene where they'll have a recorded aspect. And they and another production company that I know of in New York are very interested in finding out new ways to do this specific stuff because they've never done it, and they're excited to find new ways of using their own technology. So, you know, I would suggest finding production companies that are in your area or tech people and see if they're interested in helping out.
Right. Hey, you know, there's a really good question, not all of us have Peabody's or USC California budgets, and so how would the question says it seems like the budget and personnel in some of these programs are substantial. What recommendations do you have, software, equipment, setup, or others, for the average regional college opera program? It's a really good question. Do you want to start, Ellen?
Well, I come from a teeny tiny budget. And one of the things that I'm engaged in now is talking to other programs, our media arts. We don't have a film program at school, but we have a media arts program, and trying to engage other programs on campus that we have, and hoping that we can have some archival things done in a new way if we go to having live productions. But I'm hoping that finding ways to sort of build some relationships that haven't existed on our university between our music program and some of the other programs across campus. We are a separate school of music and not really that connected performance-wise with our theater or dance program. We get along, but just trying to have some connections on campus and take advantage of existing systems and equipment that we have.
And has that worked now? Have you felt like people really want to work together, or is everyone kind of going self-isolating because of the pressures of like, what am I going to do in theater? What am I going to do in dance? I can't possibly give resources when we can't even do what we need to do.
I think we're all still at the exploratory stage, kind of standing up after being shell-shocked, and have been waiting to find out what we're going to do. Like Carleen said, I mean, we're wide open now in South Carolina. You can go to the beach, you can do everything. And I think now that we've decided football's going on, everything's full forward. But I haven't gotten any, any territorial vibes from any of my colleagues.
Great. Carleen, did you have anything to add to, or Christoph? I think you looked like you wanted to say something.
Well, in terms of the budget and the cost, the good news is that technology has gotten very cheap. The thing I would have to know, I guess, is would this be something where the students would record it locally and then send in the recording? Would it be equipment that students need to purchase, or something that the program would have to have in order to distribute the sound? So then there's so many, I guess, follow-up questions that would come with that, like how big is the facility, how big is the opera program, what exactly is the desired outcome. But I can say with confidence that a good quality USB mic and headphones can be had for about $100, and that would enable students to do good recordings. One thing I did at Ball State is that I just put together tiered technology packages for the students. So I negotiated prices with a retail partner, and then we had these different tiers. So like a beginning $100 one, and a $200 one, then one that has also a MIDI keyboard so they can compose something and so on. And we just made that available to the students at a price where they can just purchase it if they need it. That being said, so an audio network system, I would be almost positive a place like USC would already have that in place. I'm positive they would have a Dante system or some AVB system. But an audio network system that works well, you're looking probably at least about $10,000 to make that work in a Dante system that is ready to take enough on microphones with preamps and so on. But just to send audio through a building, if you would take, for instance, the AVB route, Motu makes the company MOTU Motu makes a fairly affordable version, and you can probably get something done for about $3,000.
Okay, here's a good question. I don't know this. This is by a composer. Opera is a public art form for the most part. What do you think of the new virtual reality app for music genre? Have you come across this, Christoph?
Mm-mm.
No,
What's
No
the
one
name
has.
of the app?
I don't know. I'll ask her. We're answering it live, so I will. Hopefully, she will. Anastasia, you'll reach out to us and tell us more about this app, so you can bring it to our attention. That sounds very, very interesting. One of the a great idea is my executive director just texted me. Let's have a quick, let's call it the lightning round, about other operas that maybe lend themselves to this to a virtual environment or a distancing environment, like Peleas is a perfect example, right? So maybe, who wants the pressure? Ken, you want to start since you're right on?
Another opera that would lend itself towards,
What other operas do you think would lend themselves to? Yeah, for all of us, we have so many people
I
out
gotta
there.
be honest, I've always been an experimental director, and unless I was working in a really big house like Santa Fe or something like that, I rarely went realistic, 100% realistic. So I would say just about everything lends itself. I mean, somebody posted that they were doing, I think Ball State said they were doing Albert Herring in the fall.
Yes.
What a great piece. Talk about a piece about people and relationships being distant from each other. I mean, that was in my brain what Brent and I were talking about when we were looking at rep for the fall. I had proposed them all on the Night Visitors because of the social class distancing in it. I think there's so many pieces out there that lend themselves to this specific way of doing theater, because opera's theater. I don't just think opera when I think of performances, I think theater.
Ellen, I saw you nodding a lot.
Well, I just saw my friend Copeland Woodruff, a graduate of the older USC, I might add, is I think doing Old Maid and the Thief, which was a radio one to begin with. But I happen to agree with Ken that I think anything can work this way. And as I said, I'm anxious for any other repertoire suggestions because I don't have anything right now.
Sam?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of operas, and only a cursory look through and anybody can find them. But don't forget, I mean, a lot of us are only going to be able to do scenes. A lot of programs are only going to do scenes. So there's parts of operas that you can do that are the Così Act 1 finale. You could do the Faust Garden scene, Don Giovanni, the part from like Vedra Carino through Mitradi. I was actually thinking of doing the Midsummer Night's Dream finale with the wall. That would be fun to do. There's a lot of scenes to do as well, so don't give up on those. There's a lot of stuff to be done.
Carleen, are things coming to you offhand? Unmute yourself.
I
There you
agree
go.
with Ken, and that there are that I think to only I think we have this is I challenge everyone to be bold in their choices. I mean, how sexy, if you think about if you only think of a romantic scene in terms of kissing, I think you're missing the point of how sexy something can really be, right?
Here.
And so I just really challenge everyone, do the repertoire that is best for your students in this time of their development and make it work. Go into that text and analyze it with your students and make it work. It does not have to be, here's your golden opportunity to take this and move forward. And it may not be what we would see on a grand stage at whatever, but it may be exactly what your students need right now at this moment.
Here.
That's a great. Whatever drugs you're on, I want some, Carleen. That's absolutely brilliant. Here's a kind of a statement and a question from Matt Cooksey. Is music industry entrepreneurship training the most beneficial supplement for traditional opera workshop, scene work, actor training, etc.? Thank you, Matt. Ken, you want to, since you're nodding, you want
It
to
is
start with that
now.
one?
It is now. It has been for the last few years, really.
Mhm.
The business has been changing radically. There's no question. Everybody has to self-promote like they never did before, I think.
Right.
I think music industry is tantamount these days. It really is. It's in some ways as important as voice lessons and acting classes and movement classes, and I think it's really vital.
Great.
I can tell you that we have a music entrepreneur program at South Carolina that is gaining a lot of traction, but it's always been part of my opera workshop classes, mainly because, I started out in the freelance world, as so many of us did. And, having these sorts of tools that are available today is just, as Ken said, part of what we have to have them do and give them that experience. And one of the things I'm interested in doing, I've had my students always participate in marketing and publicity and things. And now what are we going to market and how we're going to sort of change all of that is some area of exploration I'm looking forward to.
Can I say something there? Can I add to that? I really encourage, I go back to what I said earlier about complementary skill sets. And so this idea of entrepreneurship and whatnot is incredibly important. But as we know, there's always going to be some students that gravitate towards these certain things, right? And so really encouraging them, even if we're not experts. There's this idea that we have to know everything we have to have a PhD in whatever we're talking about. And I think that is an unrealistic expectation to set, even if it's unintentional for others. So I would say that, the idea is, really encouraging students to, now's a great time. If singing has to not be in the manner that they have, there's a heck of a lot of other things they can do right now that could be incorporated, I think, in a wildly creative way. And there's a lot of creative people, I'm sure, in this listening and as part of this group. Language, how can language be further cultivated and learned under these circumstances? And incorporated into what your type of project that you need to do. There are just so many things that you can, again, I think now that it's such a great time, instead of thinking from it, I think it's a mindset shift more than anything for everyone. So if we've got to be able to think outside of the box and encourage our students to develop those types of skills as well by leading by example. And so maybe we don't know if I can't, to me, the best example you can set for your students is learning right alongside with them. Then they're going to know that learning, when they get to be ancient like me, is still a cool thing to do. And so to me, that's that component that is really critical right now for us to be addressing. And, will we fail? Oh my gosh, we'll fail we'll fail in epic ways. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. And that could be the biggest lesson they learn during this time.
Right. And sorry, I didn't unmute myself. I was being attacked by crows. Opera happens, things happen. So Christoph, you teach, I'm sure, a lot of technology to people. Do you think this is a big shift in the training at Ball State?
We're currently not requiring opera or voice students to take technology classes, but I I have to say in the 21st century, almost every music student should be required to take a basic production for performers class, where they basically just learn how does a microphone work, where do you actually sing into a microphone, what kind of cables connections do you need, just a basic understanding, just basic technology competence.
Yeah.
Because the thing that's musical, the important thing is typically the performance. And I see it just these days where I'm doing a lot of productions where we're doing remote recordings, or great singers record things that are terribly recorded, but because they're such great singers, you get away with murder. So the main thing is then for the students just to learn how to navigate technology so it doesn't get in the way. So they can still be great singers, but they don't have to focus on technology. So that technology just becomes this tool, and it's not this huge hurdle that they have to be afraid of using. So in my opinion, it would be good if any music program would offer a non-engineer audio class, where basically any student can get this basic level of competency.
You know, we have a follow-up from Anastasia, the composer. She said she meant the development of applications that visual opera productions, like that would actually mean that the viewers could become part of the action. So I haven't heard of anything like that, but it sounds like it's an interesting idea. Has anyone heard of anything like that out there? No? Well, like we were saying at the beginning, we're in a new world. So we never know what's going to happen in the next 6 months or a year. You know, these might be great ideas.
Let me step in just for a second about this idea of new technology and new skill sets. This is absolutely right. We have to learn and have our students learn. And like Carleen said, learning together is the best way, because they learn that learning is not something that they have to do, but something that they should want to do. We're actually looking at adding a class or adding sessions to the class, to the upper class, of camera work. Everybody has to make recordings these days. You have to do it for undergrad and young artist programs. And any of us who have seen these recordings know how slipshod they can be. But by giving them a simple skill set of, okay, this is where you set yourself. This is where you set the camera. This is like Christoph said, this is where your recorder, your microphone goes. This is how you look at the camera. I had my younger class try to do just simple duets, which were part of the spring program, and they just faced each other in these boxes. I was thinking, well, maybe that's a way of doing it. And of course, it failed miserably, because people were, they were horizontal or vertical, and they were in different ways, and the sound was all different. But by giving them that skill of knowing where they can go, it's a skill that they can use from now and forever.
Here was a question from Jennifer Bruton. Are the programs here, you guys, are you fully funded by your institutions, or are you relying on ticket sales? Because she said a lot of times right now people are to encourage, and also if you're going to socially distance in a theater, you're not going to be able to sell so many seats, right? How she worries that giving away our product is going to be difficult on some smaller programs. Ellen?
Well, I mean, I have a state allocation, but anything else I do, I have to raise. And so my budget is very small, and we are not ticket dependent, but definitely need it. And that's why I said we're still trying to work out whether we're going to do some kind of performances or some kind of ticketed into the virtual world. But I think this is going to be a great way of re-examining our budgets as well, because if I'm not going to do big productions with those costs, then how can I redirect those funds and hopefully again engage our students in the learning process with all of this. So we do a lot of fundraising, and our students participate in that. So kind of redirecting that is a new and interesting challenge as well for us.
Christoph, what are you doing at Ball State? Or do you know with the ticket sales and all that?
I'm not sure what they do in the opera program in terms of.
Okay. Maybe John
that-
can answer via
Yes,
Q&A
he would.
for
He
us.
would know much better.
You know, one of the questions that we had, and we've alluded to it in some of our conversations today, but one of the things that came out, our participants here had some incredible comments and questions through our the website that involved morale and involvement. You know, how do we speak to concerned students, and also, quite honestly and realistically, financially strapped parents, you know, about opera training in this current financial and also social climate, right? I mean, we've heard from all of you that people aren't saying no. They're not saying, I don't want to come. But I think we're gonna have to deal with this question sooner than later. Ken?
Yeah, yeah, we're dealing with it sooner for sure. And we're hearing from a number of students that they're thinking of taking a gap year or deferring a year. And it's scary. And what do you say? This is the problem. We all know in our hearts, because we've been doing this for so long, how vital and important this art form is. On a social level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. And they do too, kind of, but their parents are strapped. And USC, at the same time as they were announcing all of our budgets were cut, I mean, our budget's going to be cut approximately 20%. By the way, folks, USC, University of Southern California, is not the wealthiest school on earth, despite what everybody thinks. And particularly for the arts, and particularly for the opera. We are having our budget cut 20%. We have to pay union crews to come in to build our stuff. We don't have an arrangement with other programs, et cetera. At any rate, it's a problem, the morale issue. And it's the morale issue, I might add, as I'm sure you're all feeling, is a problem for the teachers. There are days when I've just come off my 3rd or 4th Zoom meeting. I know my chair is watching this. Lisa Sylvester, the great Lisa Sylvester. And I know she's doing more meetings than I am. I don't know how you survive them, because there's Zoom exhaustion, all this stuff. So it's very hard to get your own emotional energy up to be in touch with your students when they write and say, what the hell's going on? And you have to write back and say, don't worry, don't despair. It's moving forward. We're creating new ways, and we're going to have new venues, and it's going to be incredibly exciting. And we are creating the future, all of us educators, for our kids. And hopefully they're coming with us. There will be what our head of admissions is calling a melt factor, with some kids who don't come back. And we're girding our loins. We're girding our loins and doing our best. What more practically can we do?
Carleen, how do you see this playing out? And unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I was talking about this with a group of students not this long ago, and honestly, you know, I still think music is one of the most important majors a student can study. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think in terms of really getting, you know, students often come in and they have stars in their eyes and they want to be, you know, famous singers and all of that, and we have to, part of college is giving them time to grow up and come to their senses in many cases, and that's fine. But I still think that the skill sets that they're learning as a music major is, and perhaps that alone is what universities and colleges can do better in terms of demonstrating how those skill sets transfer in a variety of ways. Again, no one wants to think, you know, if I'm going to study music, I have to be, make my living by being a musician. That's great. It may not be the only reality or option for many people, especially in the next several years. And so demonstrating by, you know, why, the ability to get up and speak in front of people, the ability to organize thought, the detail that we have to learn when we're learning a piece of music, you know, and we're observing every rhythm and note on that page for accuracy. I mean, there are people just that those types of things would never occur to. So I would say schools can do a better job in general of really sharing that and raising those, having those conversations with both students, faculty, and parents.
May I piggyback on that? Carleen, that's great. And of course, we all do that. But when my school tells our kids that they're going to do 3/4 of their learning online, they're already paying $75,000 a year.
Oh.
And the university at the same time is saying they're going to do 3/4 of their learning online, is raising the tuition by 3.5%. You know, and their parents are struggling. This is
I get it. No,
Yeah.
and I sympathize with that, and it's becoming untenable, and I feel like that is, you know, that there could be a great shift coming in higher ed because of that, and that's a terrifying thing to imagine.
Yeah.
I think we are kind of answering the question at the same time. Honestly, if I was in a grad school and I was told, well, we're kind of going to be doing a little bit, we don't really know, I would take a gap year. I'm going to be honest. I would do it in a heartbeat, because, you know, Peabody is at, you know, we're at 70, right? To spend that kind of money on it. But I think the answer for me anyway is, look, we're doing something brand new. We're still doing something very exciting. We're doing something that is a new way of imagining who you are and what you can become. I think to a certain extent, some of us in certain areas, and I will admit, I probably have done this too, falling back on deflator mouth, you know, falling back on doing things the way it has been done, because you don't have to work hard creatively sometimes. You will let yourself go. But by giving ourselves the opportunity to create and say, look, yes, we're not going to do Bowen, we're not going to do deflator mouth. What we are going to do is we're going to teach you skills. You're going to do things here that you would not do anywhere else. You cannot sit in your living room and learn this on Zoom. You have to come to school and learn it from the professionals who are doing it the same time you are, because we are creating a brand new genre of art, I think.
Well, you know, I want to point something out here. I just got the panelists got a Zoom chat from a participant from Nigeria, West Africa. And I just, that's so exciting and so profound to me. It just speaks to what all of you, how important you are, how important NOA is, how important music and opera in general are, and how there are no borders for opera. And around the world, we all celebrate this art form, maybe in different ways, but we still believe in it and we still celebrate it. And Abiolu, we say hello from America to you, and thanks for joining us. One of the questions, a real practical one for all of you. What are you doing with your audience? You know, or is it not going to happen? Even in the parking garage of Ken's production, where are you going to put them? And how are you going to get them in? Let's go through everybody here. It'd be great to hear.
I'll start. We're not. No audience. We've been told unequivocally no audiences this year.
Wow.
That's why we're live streaming.
Right. Okay. Ellen?
Well, as I said, the possibility of using our 3,000-seat Roadhouse has just surfaced, and still very much in exploratory stages, but we figure we can get 200 people in if we do the 6 feet social distance. But that doesn't really help me at all. So I'm trying to, I'm figuring this out. I mean, I'm amazed at and in awe of what Sam and Ken and everybody have already been able to figure out. And maybe I'm just guilty of waiting for a little more guidance on top instead of just saying screw it and balls to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But right now I'm planning on some small audience,
Mm-hmm.
socially far apart.
Okay.
Trust me when I
Anybody
tell you,
else?
Ellen, that I'm inventing this completely out of my backside. So there is nothing that has anything.
What's
to do
new,
with-
Sam?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Those of you who know me know that that's kind of how I work. And audiences, audiences are going to be hard because I think the last thing that is going to be allowed is large groups of people in an indoor place watching anything, Broadway or opera,
Right.
concert, or whatever. I think the answer is going to be, those of you who are talking about tickets, it's going to be after, charging to watch the live stream. I think that's kind of the only way. There was a article about how many people could fit in the Boston Symphony Hall. And I think out of the however many thousands, a couple thousand, I think fit in there. I think they said 200. And even, I don't know that I would want to be one of those 200. I think it's the audience thing. I hope somebody has an answer because I wish I did. I don't.
Yeah. Carleen, what are you doing with your possible community events?
We have two things right now that we're again, these are total scenario planning, but we're actually premiering a new work in that's due to open in February, late February, and it's called Turn and Burn, and it is a feminist rodeo opera. And it's by Nell Shaw Cohen and Megan Cohen. They're sisters. And so it's a chamber opera. And so we were supposed to have our final orchestral workshop this early fall, and then give her time to make any final tweaks and stuff. That's not going to work. So we're just going to lump it all in the we're just going to lump it all in late February, and that's our next game plan. And it's worked out. We're going to do it in an alternative venue at a place called Warehouse Live, we hope. That is it's not an open air venue, but it is an open venue in that we have an enormous amount of opportunity to in our seating choices. And we had already actually kind of wanted to go down the road where we sat them at tables anyway, which is going to distance people in a way, and sort of have a box supper and all of that, box barbecue with their opera. And so we're looking at, that's like one example of, playing around with seating. I think it's hard to imagine, a theater that has 1,000 seats and only being able to seat 200. And that, I think, would be incredibly challenging to play to. I think I've seen some other examples where people are thinking about using the entire orchestra seating as the stage and then seating everyone above that, like in the mezzanine, in the balcony and all of that, if you have those options. So there may be ways to do that. Our other premiere is our touring show, our educational touring show. It's a new piece called Katie, the Strongest of the Strong by Faye Chow and Anton Dudley. And another huge issue, which maybe some of you all also deal with, is we're waiting to hear what Houston Independent School District is going to do. It's very likely they're not going to allow guests into their schools for the year. Which would impact our entire tour program. It's likely that they won't let them go on field trips for quite a while, which impacts our student performance field trips that we offer. And so, we're looking to at least perhaps try to capture the piece first on film, but actually really film it as a film and not like as a filmed performance. So there could be clever ways in which you have to, put single people into a recording studio and just record everyone individually, put it all together, and likewise come up with a creative way to film it so that you are, maybe you are filming individuals and then you're finding a way to digitally layer that in there. I mean, that's a whole other ballgame, and that we don't, even though we're Houston Grand Opera, HGOco is not, you know, a vault of money by any means. And so we have to be, you know, we have to be creative in how we look into that. So we're really waiting a lot on what we're going to be allowed to do. And so my thought is, if we can film Katie and do some sort of initial online offering with, especially with, you know, maybe cast interaction virtually to classes, teacher professional development opportunities virtually, that then eventually, once we can get to a place, perhaps we can even do a mini tour in the spring, or if we can't, I'll hold that tour and then put it into the next season, because we don't want to waste a premiere on, you know, on not giving it a proper tour. So, you know, I think those are some of the scenarios that we're planning. You know, we had a ton of storybook opera performances scheduled throughout the summer with the Harris County Public Library System, and we've had to cancel all of those, but they're practically demanding programming from us. So we're really thinking creatively about coming up with these hybrid situations where some is asynchronous content that's developed and then mixed with some at least virtual interactive components, at least right now. And then, as I said earlier, kind of going, you know, trying to be nimble enough to go with the way society opens up and begins to interact again when it's safe to do so.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to open this can of worms, but our great friend and colleague, Buck Ross, hi Buck, just asked, are your schools sending mixed messages in regards to NCAA sports and the arts? So I leave that hand grenade on the table. That's an interesting one. I don't know. I mean, Ken, you're from a big school, football school. Ellen, you know, SEC. Do you guys think that this is an issue?
Not so far. The thing is that we are controlled by the state and the city and the county of Los Angeles right now. And we've heard nothing really except that no more than 9, I think it was no more than 9 people in a room in a space together. You know what I mean? I'm so sorry. And the neighbor's dog just came out. And so that's where we're standing. We're all in the same boat. It's very egalitarian right across the board.
Okay. Ellen?
I mean, for us, you know, football does drive a lot of our economy, not only for the school, but for our city and state. So I think they're making great efforts to have some sort of football with limited participation with the fans in the stands. But we're still working it out. And we haven't, I mean, in some ways I'm a little envious that, you know, Ken, you know, boom, that's it. You can't have it live. We're still trying very much to have a hybrid with an emphasis on in-person and face-to-face instruction. But the economy of the football programs is very important to us. And I don't think we're getting mixed messages. I just don't think we're getting very clear ones, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Right. We have 2 really good questions about students, and you know what we do is about the students. You know, we're teachers, and we're trying to give them the best opportunities to learn. And Carolyn Schiller asked a good question. Are your students being asked to sign health waivers when you're coming back? And another great question was from Brandon McShaffrey at Temple. You know, if students are not wanting to come, are you holding a spot for them in their gap year? Anyone want to tackle those 2?
Sure, I'll start again. They haven't, to the best of my knowledge, they're not being asked to sign a health waiver, because at USC, we won't know until June 15th what the actual rules are for this coming school year. What was the second part of it?
For people who want gap years, like we're offering deferment to all our graduate students if they don't want to come next year. It's an automatic, hey, you don't need to come in fall 2020. You can, you'll have a spot in 2021. And that's for all of UCSB graduate school students.
We've always offered that. That's always been a thing with us. If a student finds, for various reasons, that they can't come back for their second year of master's, say, we allow them that year to defer. We have a doctoral student who deferred to go sing at the Met last year, and now she's coming back this year to complete her DMA. So that's always been a thing at USC. It's never been a problem.
At Peabody, we're doing, obviously, a lot of those who are Asian or living in Asian countries are going to have a harder time, because there's some countries, I think, that aren't even going to let people begin to apply for visas until October or November. So I think those are a given. But I think that's the important part of that. I imagine that most of us are going to have some sort of a health, just because of insurance reasons. There's going to have to be some sort of a form that people sign. I can't imagine there wouldn't be.
Right. Christoph?
I guess I don't have anything good for those particular questions. I'm more for the technical.
Right. I think we're going to start to wrap this up. I want to, I'm reading through the last bit of questions, but I also want to reach out to all of our participants to fill out a survey. Kirk is going to be sending that out to you. And I really like your feedback. I really to know how this was helpful to you. We hope to possibly do these in the future. And I think the last question I have is, what are all you the most excited for in this new future that we might have? I know there's a lot of things that are up in the air that we don't know, but what excites you about moving forward at this time? Ellen?
I have to say, I'm getting jazzed from a new energy with the students and talking with them about what their expectations, their desires are, and their willingness to work within whatever the framework we come up with together. I'm just, their energy always is inspiring, but their willingness now to say, we don't care what it is, we just want to keep learning, we just want to be out there, we just want to keep learning about this art form and shaping it. And that's, I'm really quite excited about that.
Sam, what other positive things can you?
I think you're right, Alan. The concept and the idea of allowing the students to kind of guide us, because they know a lot more about the technology than certainly I do. And they have great ideas, and learning from them is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to working with composers, student composers and the like, who are going to take this opportunity that we give them and say, hey, look, we need a piece. We need something that will work in this way. They're open to a new genre. I'm really excited to see what composers are going to come up with. That's exciting to me.
Right. Carleen?
I agree with Sam. I think that we're like right on the edge of a new way of looking at the art form here, and to embrace it. And we still will always have our traditional operas and whatnot, but I think to be in a moment where we can create the kinds of new work and explore ways of making that art and viewing that art is breathtaking. And so I just encourage everyone, that there's just not one way to look at this anymore. And students, this is a great opportunity for students to take responsibility for how they're going to participate in this art making in the future.
And Christoph, from the tech side, I mean, what excites you about this new future?
Well, as an audio educator, what excites me is that this was a real test for engineering students to be able to turn on a dime. This really came out of nowhere. And if there's one thing you need to be able to do, as especially for live sound or anything as an audio engineer, is being able, if one thing doesn't work, you have seconds to think of the next solution. So it inspired, especially with other audio educators, it really inspired a lot of creative solutions, and that, you know, have informed on other sides of education, which I think is really exciting, and it triggers a lot of invention. For me personally, I just am really looking forward to standing in the classroom again, and then interacting with the students, probably with a mask, but at least, you know, I'll be with microphones and mixing consoles. I probably won't be touching my face as often, but you know, just being in a studio again. And I think it's, you know, if one thing, the silver lining in all this is that it taught students how quickly things can change and how important it is to be able to be flexible and how to use technology.
Ken?
Everything my wonderful colleague said. And one more thing is that I am thrilled that, as always, when a crisis hits our country or the world, that it is the arts at large, all of us, every genre, that lead the way, that move everything forward on a social level, on a technical level. It's always been a privilege to be in this business, for lack of a better word. And yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to teach them how to do it.
Right. Well, final words to everyone. I want to thank all participants. I know it means a lot to everybody up here as the panel to have all of you out there. I want you all to know that you're not alone. We're all having huge difficulties, and we don't know the answers. I hope this helped you in some way, gave you some spark, gave you some hope. We're all in this together. I want to thank again Kirk Siebertson, University of Michigan, our great NOA board and executive committee, and of course our fantastic panel. Ellen, thank you. Sam, thank you. Carleen, thank you. Christoph, thanks. Ken, all of you are so fantastic. You're such great people and such great artists and collaborators. Thank you so much for being a part of NOA. And we wish everyone out there a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you all soon. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks,
Thanks for
Ben.
having me.
Thanks,
Pleasure.
everyone.
Stay
Thank
safe,
y'all.
everybody.
Yep.
Bye-bye. Great to see you all.